that he started in Lake Benton, in the house that Grandpa and my parents lived with my older brother Ken and my sister Naomi, and I was third child. And shortly after, within the year after I was born, my grandpa decided to get married for the second time after having lived and raised 11 children with his first wife. And so then my parents had to move out because he was going to use the house for himself and his new wife. And so we moved to a little house down in the west part of Lake Benton, and shortly thereafter we moved out to the first farm north of Lake Benton on the west side of the road. And we lived there for until I was about almost 13 years old. And we moved down to when my grandma Nordmeyer moved off the farm by the lake, we moved down there, which was a big difference because we were used to being up on the highway, which was close to town, and then the roads down to the farm by the lake were not that great. We oftentimes had to take the boat across, like for my graduation, my baccalaureate service. It was a nice place to live, but the lake had been dry, so it was filled with muskrat houses and mud hens, and my dad went trapping and caught muskrats every day and would skin them every night, and I'd hold the tail so that I got plenty of tail to hold the tail while he skinned the muskrats and put them onto shingles and then let them dry. And but then he finally sold the whole works on December 7th, the day of Pearl Harbor, when Cal and his sister Phyllis were at our house, and we were playing ping pong on the table and listening to the radio, and they said Pearl Harbor had been bombed, and we didn't know where Pearl Harbor was. And but my dad sold his muskrat skins that day for $1,000, which was a fortune. Cal ran home and got one skin that he I graduated in 1945 from Lake Benton High School, and I had met Cal when I was in 8th grade there. He had come into town from the country school to attend his last 4 years of high school. And then during, he graduated in 42 and went on into the service, and I continued my education and finished high school, and then I worked 1 year for Ernie Geinard in Lake Benton, and Cal was discharged the 9th of May from Fort Dix, New Jersey, 1946, and he came home, and we were engaged on June 8th, and we got married on the 28th of July, 1946. We moved to Marshall, Minnesota, where we both worked. He worked for Coca-Cola, and I worked for civil service, worked for the government. Started out in the employment office, and each time there was a reduction in force or they'd move a facility out of town, I would move on to the next spot. So I worked for the Veterans Administration, the Social Security Office, and ended up as the Lyon County Selective Service Clerk during the Korean War. And then at that time we had our name in for a long time for adoption, and we finally heard that our child would be born in October of 1954. We took my parents, mom and dad, and Cal's mom on a trip to California, and they visited relatives. Mom had a sister Rose in San Diego. My dad had a cousin in Riverside. Mom's sister Ella lived in Sacramento, and Cal's mom had a brother in Oakland, California. So we traveled for a month in 1954, and then our son was born in October of 54, but we didn't get him until February of 55. And it happened we took him to Tyler, Minnesota, to the hospital because Grandpa Lindemann was there as a patient, and we took him there to show Grandpa our new son, and by the time we get back to Marshall, Grandpa had passed away. And but we were glad that we had taken him to see him. So then we lived in Marshall until until the spring of 1956. We moved to California. And in the meantime, way back before we got Jeff, we had lived temporarily for 7 months in Madison, Minnesota. Went into business with Cal's brother Richard into a filling station, but it wasn't to any of our likings. So we moved back to Marshall. And since Cal couldn't get back with Coca-Cola, he worked for Ham's Brewing Company for 5 years. And then we moved to California. Reasons we came to the Long Beach area was because friends of ours from Marshall had already moved to that area, and there were lots of other Lake Benton families that lived out in the area, all the way from Camarillo all to Montclair, and we were like 12 couples. We would get together once a month and play poker and have a good time together, and we always got visitors. Our parents were still alive at that time, so whenever anybody came to visit their children, they would come and see us, so it was like home away from home. So I just worked as taking care of neighborhood children until we adopted another baby. This baby did not live very long. We only had him for 2.5 months, and we lost him. But we still had our application in with the county of Los Angeles County for adoption, and 7 months later, after we lost the baby, there was a little girl born in and put in the foster care, and we were lucky enough to get her, and both of our children that lived have turned out to be great assets to our family, and we dearly love being parents. Cal passed away in August of 1995, and I continued to live in the house that we had bought. And then, out of the blue, one afternoon, I came along out to Leisure World with my daughter to look at a place that her friend's parents were going to buy, and I bought a place that afternoon, and then put my house up for sale, and so I have been in Leisure World for 10.5 years now. Very happy that I did what I did when I did it.